Deal, the boy whispered. His voice was barely audible over the hum of air conditioning and the clicking pens of billionaires. Yet every head in the boardroom turned. Every laugh died. The tension crackled in the glass-walled tower 50 floors above Atlanta. A barefoot boy stood in front of the richest woman in the city. Torn jeans, a faded gray hoodie that had seen too many nights on too many cold sidewalks. His name was Micah Jones, 13 years old, African-American, and already a survivor of things most men twice his age wouldn't survive. He faced Raina Steele, founder and CEO of Steele Enterprises, a self-made billionaire whose company name was etched in chrome on every skyscraper in the skyline. Her posture was flawless, her power absolute, and her expression amused. "You," she said, laughter curling her lips. "You think you can open my vault?" Micah's gaze didn't waver. "I don't think," he said softly. "I remember." The executives burst into laughter again, echoing across the marble. Someone whispered, "He's lost his mind." Someone else muttered, "Security should throw him out already." Raina leaned forward, resting her elbows on the polished glass table. "You open that vault, kid, and I'll give you anything you want. Money, a house, whatever dream you think will fix your little life." Her tone was silk wrapped around steel. Micah didn't blink. "Deal." Silence rippled through the room. Raina gestured toward the far wall, 20 inches of reinforced steel, a biometric lock that cost more than most homes. Cameras were rolling. This would be her entertainment for the morning. Micah stepped forward, barefoot on cold marble. He placed his hand on the vault door as though listening for a heartbeat. His lips moved silently. Then, slowly, he began to punch numbers into the keypad. Beep, beep, beep. A red light flashed wrong code. The room erupted again in laughter. "Try harder, little hacker," someone called. But Micah didn't look at them. He pressed his palm flat against the lock again. His breathing steadied. His fingers moved faster, more deliberate now. A new rhythm. Beep, 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 click. The sound sliced through the laughter. Raina's smile faltered. The lock light turned green. The boy pulled the handle. The vault door opened. No one spoke. No one moved. Inside lay the proof of wealth: stacks of cash, rows of gold, antique art, diamonds sealed in glass boxes. But Micah ignored it all. He stepped inside, digging through drawers, scanning shelves with desperate urgency. Then he froze. He lifted something small and delicate, a silver heart-shaped music box, cracked and tarnished with age. He held it tight against his chest. His shoulders trembled. Raina's voice cracked the silence. "That's worthless." "What are you doing?" Micah turned toward her. Eyes blazing with tears he refused to let fall. "This belongs to my mother." The boardroom fell silent again. A chill swept through the suits. Raina frowned. "Excuse me?" He took a step closer. "My mom worked for you, Naomi Jones. She cleaned this building for 8 years. She told me you stole something from her, the only thing her father left her. She tried to confront you, and that night, she disappeared." Raina's breath caught. Her face paled. "You ruined her life," Micah said. His voice cracked. "You took everything from us." The laughter was gone now. Only the hum of the air vents filled the room. Even the city outside seemed to go quiet. Raina stared at the music box. She remembered it. The night it vanished. The argument. The betrayal she'd buried so deep she convinced herself it never happened. Who are you?" she whispered. "I'm her son," Micah said. And for the first time in her empire's history, Raina Steele didn't know what to say. The silence that followed felt like punishment. The executives shifted uncomfortably, trying not to look at the boy or at the billionaire who'd just been accused of ruining a life. Raina's throat tightened. "Security. Escort him out." But no one moved. Micah didn't fight, didn't flinch. He simply placed the music box on the table between them. "My mom said you'd never admit it," he murmured. "But she also said people like you, people who forget where they came from, always remember what they took." Then he turned and started walking toward the elevator. Raina's voice, sharp and cracking, followed him. "How did you know the code?" Micah stopped. He turned back, tears spilling freely now. She wrote everything down. Said powerful people forget numbers but never guilt. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, torn page, folded and refolded until it was nearly breaking apart. Her handwriting. She kept this one note hidden from me. She said someday I'd understand. The elevator doors closed behind him. When they did, something inside Raina Steele cracked. That night, her penthouse felt colder than usual. The floor-to-ceiling windows reflected back her own face, unrecognizable beneath exhaustion and something else she'd never felt before. Shame. The silver bracelet on her wrist felt heavier than her empire. She poured herself a drink and stood in front of the city lights. Below her, Atlanta pulsed with life cars, laughter, stories she'd long stopped caring about. Once upon a time, she'd built her company to escape poverty. Born in Decatur, raised by a single mother who cleaned office buildings, Raina had promised herself she'd never be invisible again. Now she was the richest woman in the city, and somehow, more invisible than ever. Her eyes drifted to the corner of her office where, earlier that day, Micah had stood barefoot, trembling but fearless. The way he'd said, "My mom worked for you," replayed over and over like a loop she couldn't shut off. Raina stumbled to her desk, opening drawer after drawer, until she found the old company employment archives. And there it was, Naomi Jones. Custodial Services, Steel Enterprises. Hired, 2010. Terminated, 2018. Her termination report was signed by Raina herself. The note beside it read, "Employee dismissed for misconduct. Unauthorized access to restricted files." Raina remembered that day. Naomi had come to her office, trembling with papers in her hands, records showing millions in unreported bonuses being diverted into offshore accounts. "You're being scammed by your own partner," Naomi had said. "Look at this." But Raina hadn't looked. She'd seen only a cleaner standing in her office with files she shouldn't have had. Pride had done the rest. She'd called security and had Naomi escorted out before she could explain. Raina's glass slipped from her hand and shattered across the floor. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands shaking. "What have I done?" she whispered. Outside, the storm clouds gathered. Thunder rolled over the skyline like an echo of her conscience. She grabbed her phone and dialed an old number, the one she hadn't called in years. The voicemail still had Naomi's voice. "Hi, this is Naomi. Leave a message. And remember, no matter how bad today feels, the sun's still rising tomorrow." Raina hung up, pressing the phone to her heart. She thought of Micah homeless, alone, holding that broken music box like a relic of a life stolen from him. For the first time in a long time, Raina cried. And somewhere across town, in a crowded homeless shelter, Micah lay awake under a threadbare blanket, clutching that same music box close to his chest. He whispered, "I found it, Mom. I found it. I told her who you were." He wound the key. The faint lullaby played into the darkness. Before we move forward, if you've ever carried guilt for something you can't undo, or stayed silent when you should have spoken up, take a moment to think about the power of facing it. Every time you share a story like this, you remind the world that change begins with truth. The next morning, Raina sat at her desk, eyes bloodshot, the sun barely rising. The company's daily reports lay unopened. She picked up her phone and whispered to her assistant, "Find him. The boy. Micah Jones. I need to see him again." Her assistant hesitated. "Ma'am, with respect, yesterday's incident is all over social media. You're trending under number Steele Heartless." "I don't care," Raina said, voice firm but shaking. "Just find him." The morning broke gray over Atlanta, the kind of light that made even skyscrapers look tired. Raina Steele sat in the backseat of her car, phone pressed to her ear, eyes fixed on the endless maze of traffic below. "Check every shelter," she told her driver, Michael. "Start downtown, Peachtree, Auburn Avenue, Edgewood. Ask for a boy named Micah, 13, brown skin, thin, sharp eyes." Michael nodded, uneasy. He'd worked for her 12 years and never seen her like this. No jewelry, no assistant, no mask of confidence. Just quiet urgency. "Ma'am," he said gently, "you sure this is wise?" That boy could be anywhere. You have meetings. Raina cut him off. Then cancel them. I've spent half my life chasing the wrong things. This matters. Across the city, the shelter on Pine Street hummed with the sounds of morning footsteps, breakfast trays, a television murmuring weather reports. Micah sat at a table near the window, warming his hands around a paper cup of coffee gone cold. He'd been up all night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, the woman his mother had warned him about. But the truth hadn't felt like victory. It had felt hollow. He had the music box, yes, but he didn't have answers. Was his mother alive? Dead? Forgotten in some corner of the world that power couldn't see? He turned the music box over in his hands. On the bottom, faint initials were etched in tiny cursive. R.S. He frowned. The same initials on the glass tower that pierced the Atlanta skyline. Steel Enterprises. He whispered, "Why would she have written your name on this?" By noon, Raina's car had stopped at 3 shelters, 2 hospitals, and 1 abandoned school turned community center. No sign of him. At the 4th stop, a red brick shelter run by a church, she finally heard his name. "Oh, Micah," the volunteer said, smiling kindly. "Sweet kid. Comes by for breakfast. Keeps to himself. Sketches a lot." Raina's breath caught. "Sketches? Yeah. Draws people. Said he's trying to remember faces." The volunteer pointed toward the courtyard. "You might catch him before he heads out." Raina stepped outside. The winter air bit against her face, but she barely felt it. Across the courtyard, Micah sat cross-legged on a concrete step, sketchpad balanced on his knees. He was drawing something, no, someone. Raina's own face stared back at her from the page. She froze. He looked up slowly. Their eyes met. Micah's jaw tightened. "Why are you here?" Raina walked closer. "To make something right," he scoffed. "You think saying sorry fixes 8 years of hunger?" Her throat tightened. "No. But maybe it's a start." He closed the sketchbook. "I don't need your money." Raina crouched beside him, ignoring the dirt soaking into her coat. "Then what do you need?" He hesitated. "The truth." She nodded. "Then let's find it. Together." They sat in silence for a long time. The traffic hum faded, replaced by the flutter of pigeons overhead. Raina took a deep breath. "Micah, your mother didn't steal from me. She tried to protect me. From people inside my company. She found something I wasn't supposed to see, and instead of listening, her voice cracked. I destroyed her life." Micah stared down at the sketchbook, his fingers clenched. "Then, where is she?" Raina looked at him, pain flickering behind her eyes. "I don't know, but I promise you, we'll find her." The boy studied her, suspicion warring with hope. "Why now?" "Because," she said softly, "yesterday I saw a boy open my vault, and I realized he also opened my heart." For the first time, Micah looked at her not as a monster, but as a human being drowning in regret. And though he didn't say it, something shifted between them. Sometimes we meet people who mirror the worst of what we've done and give us a chance to make it right. If you've ever been offered that chance, don't run from it. Lean in. Redemption doesn't wait forever. By the time the sun began to sink behind the Atlanta skyline, the strange alliance between Billionaire and boy had already started to test its limits. Raina's sleek black SUV pulled up outside her corporate headquarters, the same glass fortress where Micah had confronted her just the day before. The revolving doors whispered open, but this time she wasn't walking in as the untouchable CEO of Steel Enterprises. She was walking in as a woman, trying to atone for something she couldn't forgive herself for. Security guards looked on, confused, as Raina escorted Micah through the marble lobby. His shoes, borrowed from the shelter, squeaked against the polished floors. He kept his hood up, clutching the sketchbook and the music box tightly. Inside the elevator, silence pressed between them. Micah's reflection stared back at him from the mirrored walls, small, uncertain, but determined. "Why are we here?" he finally asked. "To find the truth," Raina said. Her voice was low but steady. "Your mother's employment records were deleted from the digital system years ago. But I still have backups, hard drives, old correspondence, employee memos. Somewhere in there we'll find what really happened. The elevator chimed softly, opening to her private floor. The office that once shimmered with prestige now felt like a mausoleum of guilt. Raina crossed to her desk, waking up the dormant computer with a trembling hand. Her login still worked. Micah stood behind her, arms crossed. "You really think you can fix this by finding a few files?" Raina hesitated. "No, but it's where we start." She typed in Naomi Jones. The screen blinked, pulling up only fragments, shift logs, building access times. A few notes from human resources. Most of the detailed files had been erased. Micah's voice softened. Someone didn't want her story seen. Raina's jaw tightened. That someone was my former business partner, Elliot Graves. She clicked through archived emails, her fingers moving faster as the puzzle came together. Elliot, her CFO at the time, had controlled the company's financial back end. The reports Naomi brought her that night, the ones she'd thrown away, had shown millions siphoned off into private accounts under shell companies. Naomi had been right. "Oh my God," Raina whispered. She wasn't lying. Micah stepped closer, peering over her shoulder. "Then, where is he now?" Raina's face hardened. "Running his own investment firm in Dallas." Micah frowned. "So he got rich off stealing from you, and my mom paid for it." The realization hit Raina like a wave. She leaned against the desk, gripping the edge. "Micah, I swear to you I didn't know what he did to her. I just believed what he told me." Micah looked down at the floor, his voice trembling. "Believing a liar doesn't make you innocent." The words cut deep. She didn't defend herself. She just nodded. "You're right." Later that night, the two of them sat in the office, surrounded by stacks of paper, old reports, encrypted drives, financial ledgers. Outside, the lights of the city glowed through the windows, but inside, only the desk lamp illuminated their quiet determination. Micah scrolled through scanned records on a second monitor. "Wait," he said suddenly. This is her last clock-out log. January 16th, 2018, 10:42 p.m. Raina's pulse quickened. "That's the night she was fired." He nodded. "But look, security badge usage. She swiped out of your floor. But 15 minutes later, her card was used again. Basement level." Raina froze. "The server vault." She pulled up blueprints of the building, tracing her finger across the map. "That's where we kept physical drives, everything from payroll to private contracts." Micah met her eyes. "She went back for proof, and she never came out," Raina whispered. For the first time, fear threaded her voice. Micah closed his sketchbook and stared at the dark window reflection himself beside the woman who had once ruined his family. "Then that's where we start," he said. Raina nodded slowly, but neither of them knew that the building still kept its secrets. Secrets that would soon test them both in ways they never expected. Before we move forward, if you've ever discovered too late that you were wrong about someone, you know the ache that follows. The least we can do for the ones we've hurt is face the truth we once ran from. Share this story if you believe second chances should still exist for those brave enough to ask for them. The next morning dawned pale and rain-heavy, the kind of morning that made Atlanta feel smaller, more fragile. Raina stood in the parking garage beneath Steel Tower, staring at the reinforced door to the server vault, a place she hadn't entered since before Naomi disappeared. The air smelled of oil and dust. The hum of fluorescent lights echoed off the concrete walls. She entered her passcode, the keypad beeping in recognition, and the heavy lock disengaged with a mechanical hiss. Micah stood beside her, holding his mother's music box tight against his chest. He looked so small against the giant metal door, yet something in his eyes was fearless. Raina exhaled slowly. "You ready?" Micah nodded. "I've been ready for 8 years." The door opened. Inside, rows of silent servers blinked with faint, dying lights. Most of the systems had been moved to cloud storage years ago, but the vault remained as a backup, a graveyard of old data and forgotten secrets. Raina switched on her phone's flashlight. Dust drifted like ghosts in the beam. "Your mother came here that night," she said quietly. "She must have known she was being set up." Micah scanned the room. "Then maybe she left something behind." They split up, Reyna heading toward the old control console, Micah toward the stacks of archive boxes on the far end. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the distant hum of ventilation. Then Micah called out softly, "Miss Reyna, you need to see this." She turned. He was kneeling beside a metal filing cabinet, half buried under old crates. The label on it read, "January 2018 Incident Logs." Reyna knelt beside him. She pried the drawer open, coughing as dust billowed out. Inside, she found a stack of burned CDs, each labeled with dates, and one with a single word scrawled in marker. Proof. Her hands trembled. "Naomi." Micah's breath hitched. "It's hers?" Reyna nodded. "It has to be." She pulled out the disc, slid it into the control console's drive, and waited. The screen flickered to life, old security footage, time-stamped the night of Naomi's firing. There she was. Naomi Jones, wearing her blue janitorial uniform, walking down the hallway outside Reyna's office. Her face was pale but determined. She carried a folder pressed tightly against her chest. Reyna's breath caught. "That's her." They watched in silence as Naomi entered the server room. Minutes later, another figure appeared on screen, tall, suited, confident. Elliot Graves. He followed her in. The footage had no audio, but his body language told the story. He gestured angrily. Naomi shook her head, backing away. He stepped closer. She tried to move past him. He grabbed her wrist. Then the camera glitched, static flooding the screen. When it cleared, Naomi was gone. Only Elliot remained, holding the folder. Micah's knuckles went white. What did he do to her? Reyna couldn't answer. Her throat had gone dry. The footage ended abruptly. The monitor froze on Elliot's face, calm, composed, predatory. Reyna whispered, "He didn't just ruin her career. He erased her." Micah turned toward her, his small hands shaking. "We have to show the police." Reyna shook her head slowly. "Not yet. If we go public now, he'll bury the evidence again. He's powerful, connected. I know the kind of men who make problems disappear." Micah clenched his fists. "Then what do we do?" Reyna looked at the screen again. "We find her." That night, they returned to her penthouse. The city below glimmered like spilled gold, oblivious to the storm brewing above. Reyna made a call, one she hadn't made in years. "Detective Cole? It's Reyna Steele. I need a favor, and I need discretion." Micah sat on the couch, the music box open in his lap. Its soft lullaby filled the silence between them. Reyna turned to him. "She might still be alive, Micah. If he covered his tracks that well, he didn't want her body found. That means he needed her hidden." Micah looked up slowly. "Then we find the place she was hidden." For the first time, Reyna smiled. "Exactly." Hours later, after Micah had fallen asleep on the couch, Reyna sat by the window, staring at the skyline. Her reflection stared back, weary, remorseful, but resolute. She whispered, "Naomi, if you can hear me, I'm sorry. I'm going to fix this." And behind her, the faintest sound came from the music box, the lullaby, slowing, fading, almost like a heartbeat trying to steady itself after years of silence. Before we move forward, if you've ever watched someone suffer because of a lie you believed, ask yourself, how long is too long to make it right? Don't wait until guilt is the only thing left. Do something while the truth still has breath. The next morning, Atlanta's winter sky hung low and gray as Reyna's private jet cut through the clouds en route to Dallas. Micah sat quietly by the window, headphones in but no music playing, staring down at the endless patchwork of clouds. Reyna glanced at him from across the cabin. The boy hadn't spoken much since they watched the footage. The rage that had flickered in his eyes the night before had settled into something colder, heavier resolve. "Micah," she said softly, "we'll find him. And when we do, he'll answer for what he did." Micah looked up, his eyes dark. "You mean the way you made my mom answer?" Reyna winced, the words slicing through her composure. She didn't respond because he was right. She turned toward the window. "You'll have justice, Micah, even if it costs me everything." By noon, the plane landed on a private airstrip outside Dallas. Waiting there was Detective Cole. A tall man in his early 40s with a calm, weary face that suggested he'd seen too much of humanity's dark corners. He greeted Raina with a firm nod. "You sure about this?" Raina nodded. "Elliot Graves. He's running Gravestone Holdings out of downtown. I need you to get me inside quietly." Cole raised an eyebrow. "That man's untouchable. Money buys silence in this city. You know that better than anyone." Raina's expression hardened. "Then I'll buy the noise." Micah stepped forward, his small voice cutting through the tension. "We don't need to hurt him. We just need him to tell the truth." Cole studied the boy for a moment, then gave a small, almost respectful nod. "You're your mother's son, aren't you?" Micah blinked. "You knew her?" "I did," Cole said quietly. "Naomi Jones came to me once, before she disappeared, said she had evidence of corporate theft, money laundering, and something bigger, trafficking of offshore assets tied to steel enterprises. She was scared, but determined. I told her to go to Raina Steele directly, thought it'd protect her." Raina closed her eyes. "You sent her to me, and I destroyed her life." Cole's jaw clenched. "We both did." That afternoon, they arrived at Gravestone Tower, 40 floors of glass and arrogance piercing the Dallas skyline. Raina's heels echoed on the marble floors as she entered the lobby with Micah beside her and Cole trailing behind. The receptionist's smile faltered. "Miss Steele?" "Mr. Graves didn't." "He'll see me," Raina said coldly. Moments later, the elevator doors opened to Elliot Graves' office. The man himself stood by the window, his reflection framed by the city skyline. Time had added lines to his face, but not softened them. He turned slowly, his lips curling into a smirk. "Well," he said, voice dripping with false charm, "if it isn't the prodigal queen, to what do I owe the honor?" Raina's eyes were icy. "Cut the act, Elliot. You know why I'm here." Elliot chuckled. "Ah, yes. The missing maid, wasn't it? The one who tried to frame me." Micah stepped forward. "She wasn't framing anyone. You hurt her." Elliot blinked, noticing the boy for the first time. "And who might this be? Your new intern?" Raina's voice was sharp. "This is her son." The smirk vanished. Elliot took a slow step back, eyes narrowing. "So, the little ghost finally found me." Micah's hands balled into fists. "You took her. You took everything." Elliot laughed a cold, hollow sound. "Took her. Boy, I saved her. You think your mother was some saint? She knew too much. She was going to burn your precious Miss Steele here and half the corporate world with her. So yes, I made her disappear. Better one casualty than a collapse." Raina's stomach twisted. "Where is she, Elliot?" He smirked again. "Alive. Last I heard, she was somewhere she can't hurt anyone, a clinic off the grid, kept comfortable, paid for." Micah lunged forward, but Raina caught him. "Where is it?" she demanded. Elliot's eyes glittered. "You really want to know? Then step off your throne, Raina, because once you dig her out, everything you built falls with her. That woman has evidence that ties your name to every dirty deal I made. You're not her savior, you're her accomplice." The words hit like a physical blow. Raina's breath caught. "You're lying." Elliot's smile didn't waver. "Am I? Tell me, how did all those offshore accounts get signed off without your signature?" Silence. Micah looked up at her, his face pale. Tears welled in Raina's eyes. "I didn't know, Micah. I swear to you I didn't know." Elliot stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You can keep pretending you were blind, Raina, but ignorance isn't innocence." Then he whispered, "Ask her yourself, if you can find her." Raina turned away, shaking, clutching the edge of the desk to stay upright. Cole moved forward, glaring at Elliot. "You just confessed to a felony," Elliot smirked. "Without proof, detective. It's just a story." Cole's phone buzzed suddenly. He glanced at the screen and froze. "Raina," he said, voice trembling. "We found her." Micah looked up sharply. "My mom?" Cole nodded. "Alive, in a rehabilitation clinic just outside Houston. Name's been changed, but the fingerprints matched." Raina's hand went to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. Oh, God. Micah stood frozen, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. He whispered, "She's alive?" Cole nodded again. Barely, but yes. For the first time, the boy smiled. Then what are we waiting for? Raina turned toward Elliot, her face hard again. You may have hidden her once, but this time, I'm bringing her home. Elliot laughed softly. You always were sentimental. Don't forget you're part of the same mess you're trying to clean. Raina's voice was steel. Then I'll drown in it if I have to. She turned toward Micah. Let's go find your mother. Sometimes the path to redemption runs straight through the wreckage of your own making. If you've ever caused pain without meaning to, don't hide behind excuses. Face it. Fix it. Because truth, once found, is the only thing that can save you. The drive to Houston felt like forever. The rain chased them all the way down I-45, streaking across the windshield in silver ribbons. Micah sat in the passenger seat, his hands gripping the music box so tightly his knuckles turned white. Every mile closer, his silence grew heavier, a mixture of hope, fear, and disbelief. Raina glanced at him every few minutes, afraid to speak. She didn't deserve words right now. Not until she proved herself. Not until she gave him what she'd taken away. By the time they reached the rehabilitation clinic, night had fallen. The building was small, tucked behind a church on the outskirts of Houston. No signs, no logos, just a faint glow from the windows and the smell of rain-soaked pine. Detective Cole led them inside. Clinic's been operating quietly under corporate funding, he murmured. Guess whose name was on the donation records? Raina didn't have to ask. She already knew. Elliot Graves. The nurse at the front desk looked startled to see them. Raina stepped forward, her voice steady but soft. We're here to see Naomi Jones. The nurse blinked. She doesn't usually get visitors. Please, Micah said, his voice cracking. She's my mom. The nurse's expression changed immediately. You wait here, sweetheart. I'll go check. The seconds stretched like hours. Raina stood perfectly still, her heart hammering against her ribs. She didn't know what she'd say, what apology could possibly undo 8 years of suffering. Then the nurse returned, smiling gently. She's awake. Room 12. Down the hall. Micah was already moving before she finished speaking. Raina followed quietly, every step heavier than the last. The room was small but clean, filled with the soft beeping of machines and the faint scent of antiseptic. On the bed lay a woman, frail, thin, but unmistakable. Naomi Jones. Her once dark hair was streaked with gray, her hands trembling slightly as she reached to adjust her blanket. But when she turned toward the door and saw Micah standing there, her eyes widened, then overflowed. Micah? She whispered. Mom. He ran to her, and she pulled him into her arms. For a moment, the world disappeared. No rain, no guilt, no corporate lies. Just a mother and son finally whole again. Naomi cupped his face, her fingers trembling as they brushed his cheeks. You're so big. I thought I'd never see you again. Micah couldn't speak. He buried his face in her shoulder and sobbed. Raina stood frozen at the door, tears streaming silently down her face. She didn't deserve to enter that light, not yet. But Naomi looked up and saw her. Recognition flickered in her tired eyes. Raina Steele. Raina took a hesitant step forward. Naomi. Stop, Naomi said gently. You don't owe me words. I know. Raina's throat tightened. You warned me, and I didn't listen. You lost everything because of me. Naomi gave a small, weary smile. I lost my life because of men like him. You were just blind. Micah looked up, his hand still clutching his mother's. He said you had proof, that you tried to stop them. Naomi nodded weakly. I did. Elliot was using Steele Enterprises to funnel stolen charity funds offshore. I found the records. When I confronted him, he threatened me. I ran to your mother, Miss Steele, I mean. You for help. She paused, voice trembling. But I never made it home. They found me in the parking garage. After that, it's all a blur. Cole stepped closer. You were kept sedated. They moved you between clinics to erase the trail. Naomi closed her eyes. He said if I stayed quiet, my son would be safe. I signed whatever papers they gave me. Micah's hand tightened around hers. You don't have to be quiet anymore. Raina moved closer, sinking into the chair beside her bed. Her voice cracked. Naomi, I'm going to bring him down. Every last person who touched this, they'll answer for it. Naomi studied her for a long moment. Why now? Raina swallowed hard. Because I finally met someone brave enough to show me what I'd become. She looked at Micah. Your son reminded me what truth costs and what it's worth. For the first time, Naomi's eyes softened. He's a good boy. He always was. Micah looked at both women. One who'd lost everything, and one trying to make it right. So, what happens now? Raina took Naomi's hand gently. Now, we finish what you started. That night, they stayed in the clinic. Micah refused to leave his mother's side, eventually falling asleep curled up in the chair beside her bed. Raina stood by the window, staring out at the storm-washed sky. Cole joined her quietly. You did good, he said. She shook her head. Not yet. She deserves justice, not just rescue. Cole nodded. Then we'll get it. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon, distant, fading. For the first time, the sound didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a promise. If this moment touched you, if you've ever seen someone finally come home from the storm, then you know redemption doesn't erase the past. It redeems it. Don't look away from people who need you. Sometimes, one act of courage is enough to bring someone back to life. The trial was the kind of storm that shakes the foundations of cities. Headlines splashed across every major network. Billionaire Raina Steele testifies against former partner in multi-million-dollar corruption case. Whistleblower Naomi Jones found alive, hidden for 8 years. The maid who knew too much. Reporters flooded the courthouse steps in downtown Houston. Cameras clicked like distant gunfire as Raina exited the black SUV, dressed in a simple gray suit, no diamonds, no designer labels, no armor, just truth. Micah held her hand tightly, his small frame nearly swallowed by the crowd. On the other side of him walked Naomi, thinner than before but standing tall, her son's strength keeping her upright. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Elliot Graves sat at the defense table, his trademark arrogance replaced by the hollow composure of a man surrounded by consequences. His lawyers whispered frantically, but he just stared ahead, jaw tight, hands folded. When Raina took the stand, the room went silent. The prosecutor approached. Miss Steele, please explain your relationship to the defendant. Raina's voice was steady. Elliot Graves was my partner in business. He handled our international accounts while I oversaw corporate operations. And did you know he was using Steele Enterprises to launder stolen charity funds offshore? Raina hesitated. The weight of years pressed on her chest. No. But I should have. I ignored the signs. Naomi Jones saw the truth long before I did, and I punished her for it. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Raina continued, her gaze fixed on Elliot. She came to me with evidence. I was too proud, too comfortable to listen. When she disappeared, I told myself she was guilty. It was easier than admitting I'd failed her. The prosecutor nodded slowly. And what do you believe now? Raina turned to the judge, her voice trembling but clear. That justice delayed is justice denied, and that silence is complicity. I'm here to make noise. Micah watched her from the benches, his chest swelling with something he didn't have a name for yet. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was healing. When Elliot took the stand, his mask cracked almost immediately. The prosecutor played the recovered footage from the vault, Naomi confronting him, his hand grabbing her wrist. The courtroom gasped. Elliot tried to recover, leaning into the microphone. That footage proves nothing. She was hysterical. I was trying to calm her down. Raina's voice rang out from the witness table. By erasing her? He glared at her. By protecting what we built. Raina stood. You didn't protect anything. You destroyed it. Every dollar you stole was meant for children's hospitals, housing programs, food drives, the kind of people Naomi represented. You buried her so you could keep pretending you were saving the world while bleeding it dry. The judge banged the gavel. Miss Steele, Control yourself. But Raina didn't look away from Elliot. Neither did the cameras. 2 hours later, the verdict came in. Guilty on all counts. Elliot's composure shattered. His lawyers tried to pull him away, but he spun toward Raina as they cuffed him. "You think this makes you clean?" he hissed. "You'll still carry my sins." Raina met his gaze calmly. "Then I'll carry them honestly." They led him away, his footsteps echoing like a closing chapter. Outside the courthouse, the air was alive with rain again, the same storm that had followed them for days. But this time, it felt cleansing. Naomi stood under an umbrella, her hand resting on Micah's shoulder. Raina stepped beside them. "It's over." Naomi smiled faintly. "No, it's just beginning." Raina tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Naomi reached into her bag and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. "Before they took me, I mailed this to myself. A copy of the file's proof of everything we uncovered. But it's not just about corruption. It's about rebuilding." Micah looked at her curiously. "Rebuilding what?" Naomi's eyes filled with quiet pride. "The foundation your mother and I dreamed of, a non-profit for kids who grow up like I did, like you did. The invisible ones. The ones the system forgets." She turned to Raina. "I can't do it alone." Raina took the envelope in both hands, her eyes glistening. "Then you won't." They stood there together, 3 lives, once divided by power, now bound by purpose. Behind them, the courthouse loomed, but the storm had broken. The clouds were lighter now, streaks of sunlight breaking through like forgiveness. Later that evening, they visited the same Houston clinic where it all began. This time, it wasn't to hide but to give back. Naomi donated part of her settlement to renovate the facility, naming it the Second Chance Center, dedicated to survivors of corporate neglect and injustice. Raina helped sign the papers, quietly transferring the remainder of her fortune into the foundation's trust. She didn't need wealth anymore. She needed redemption. As the cameras flashed and the media crowded in, Naomi turned to the reporters and said, "People like me don't need charity. We need opportunity. We need someone to see us before we vanish." The crowd applauded, but Raina's eyes found Micah, standing a few feet away, holding the silver bracelet, the one that had started everything. He smiled and handed it to her. "Keep it," he said. "You earned it." Raina's throat tightened. "No, Micah, it's yours." He shook his head. "You gave my mom her life back. That's worth more than anything." She took the bracelet, her fingers tracing the cracked heart charm. For the first time, she understood what it meant, not broken, but open. If you've ever buried someone under your silence, remember, truth doesn't vanish just because you ignore it. It waits. And when it rises, it asks one question: what will you do now that you can finally see? 6 months later, the Texas sun rose over Houston like a quiet promise. The city was different now, or maybe it was just them. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered like dew on morning glass. At the edge of the city, beyond the noise and the glass towers, stood the new home of the Second Chance Foundation. A renovated red brick building surrounded by gardens, murals, and laughter. Children ran across the courtyard, chasing soccer balls and bubbles. Volunteers painted fences, teachers carried books, and music drifted through open windows. On a marble plaque near the entrance, engraved words gleamed in gold, for those who were forgotten until love remembered. Naomi Jones stood before it, her hands trembling slightly as she touched the stone. She still walked with a cane, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. Raina stood beside her, no longer dressed in boardroom power suits but in jeans and a soft white blouse. Simplicity suited her. The world had known her as a billionaire. Now it knew her as a builder of lives. Micah bounded toward them, a backpack slung over one shoulder. "We finished the mural, Mom," he said breathlessly. "Wanna see?" Naomi smiled, her eyes warm. "Show us, baby." "Dan." He led them to the far wall of the courtyard, where the mural stretched across brick and sunlight, a breathtaking image of hands reaching toward one another. One pair weathered and strong, one small and new, and between them, a single open safe glowing with light. At the bottom, the words were painted in bright yellow: Hope is the only key. Raina stopped in her tracks, tears welling. Micah, she whispered. You made this? He shrugged shyly. It was your idea, really. You opened the safe, not the metal one, the other one. She looked down at him. What other one? He smiled. The one in your heart. Naomi reached for Raina's hand. He's right, you know. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The world around them, laughter, footsteps, music faded into something softer. Later that day, they gathered in the new assembly hall, where a small crowd had come for the foundation's opening ceremony. Reporters were there, of course. But this time, Raina didn't hide from the cameras. She stood at the podium with Naomi and Micah beside her, not as a CEO, but as a woman who had come full circle. 8 years ago, Raina began, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. I believed power meant control. I believed wealth meant safety. But I was wrong. Power means responsibility, and wealth means nothing if it isn't used to heal the harm it once caused. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the faces before her, the volunteers, the survivors, the children who'd once been invisible. I was given a second chance by a woman I failed and a boy I misjudged. Today we honor both. She turned slightly, gesturing toward Naomi. This foundation carries Naomi Jones's name because she fought for truth when it was dangerous to do so. She risked everything for integrity, and the world silenced her. But today, her voice is louder than ever. Applause filled the hall. Naomi bowed her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. Raina continued, her voice breaking. And to her son, Micah, who walked into a tower of glass and arrogance, and showed me what courage looks like when it's pure thank you. You reminded me that redemption isn't given, it's earned. The crowd stood, clapping, some crying openly. Naomi took Raina's hand. Micah smiled shyly, looking around at the sea of faces. For the first time, he didn't feel like the kid from the streets. He felt seen. After the ceremony, Raina and Naomi sat on a bench outside the building as dusk settled over Houston. The golden light caught the mural, making it glow. Naomi sighed softly. Do you ever think about the past? Raina smiled faintly. Every day. But now it doesn't chain me. It teaches me. Naomi nodded. Good. Because forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing peace over punishment. Raina turned to her, voice low. Can you ever forgive me? Naomi? Naomi looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. I already did. The day you walked into that clinic, I saw it in your eyes. You weren't the woman who buried me anymore. Raina exhaled shakily, tears spilling down her cheeks. Thank you. Naomi chuckled softly. Don't thank me. Thank the kid who broke into your boardroom. Raina laughed, wiping her eyes. He really did, didn't he? Naomi smiled, glancing toward Micah, who was playing soccer with the other kids. He's his mother's son, stubborn as ever. The sound of laughter echoed across the courtyard. As the sky darkened into violet, Raina stood and walked toward the mural one last time. She touched the painted safe with her fingertips and whispered, We found the key. Behind her, Micah ran up, holding something small in his hand. I have something for you, he said. She turned. What is it? He placed the silver bracelet, the one with the broken heart charm, into her palm. It had been cleaned, the metal shining faintly in the twilight. I fixed it, he said proudly. See? The heart's not broken anymore. Raina looked down. The charm had been soldered together, leaving a faint scar across the center. Imperfect, but whole. She knelt in front of him, her eyes wet. It's beautiful, Micah smiled. It's like us. We're not broken, just healed differently. Raina pulled him into a hug, her arms wrapping around him tightly. You're going to change the world, Micah Jones. Just like your mom. From behind, Naomi's voice called out gently. Dinner's ready, heroes. They turned, smiling. And as they walked back toward the foundation's doors, 3 souls bound not by blood but by redemption, the mural behind them glowed in the fading sun. That night, as the city lights came alive, a small plaque was placed beneath the mural. It read, This place was built on one truth, that no one is too lost to be found again. Sometimes, it takes losing everything to finally see what matters. Sometimes, it takes a boy with nothing to remind the powerful what everything really is. And sometimes, the most unbreakable safes aren't made of steel, but of hearts that finally choose to open. If this story reached you, if you believe that forgiveness can rewrite even the hardest chapters, then stay with us. Subscribe to this channel and share your own second chance story in the comments. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to be reminded. It's never too late to open your heart.